Do you feel like your team is super busy, but nothing ever actually gets done? Well, you're not crazy. The average service business, for example, wastes about 30% of its team's capacity on things that literally produce absolutely nothing. Not bad work, not lazy people, just waste. Work that moves information from one place to another for no reason. Work that exists because someone's waiting on someone else, or work that gets done twice because nobody knew it was already done. And the worst part, most founders don't even know that it's actually happening because it doesn't look like waste on the surface. It just looks like a busy team. About 70 years ago, a man called Taichi Ono stood on a factory floor in Toyota and figured out all of that waste, every single type. It fits into 7 categories. He called it Timwood. And in this video, I'm going to take each of these 7 wastes and translate them from a production line into your service business, because every single one of them is in there. This is actually the same framework we use at Foundana when we work with service businesses. It's how we figure out where to improve performance before we build any custom software at all. And if you're the kind of person who wants to learn how to diagnose and fix the stuff yourself, then jump into our community at Stackly. But before we get into the 7 wastes, you need to understand where this actually comes from, because the origin story is what makes this whole framework click. It's 1945, Japan had just lost the war, and the country's industrial base was in ruins. Toyota at the time was a tiny car company. They were making about 2,500 cars a year, and for context, Ford at the same time were making that many in a single day. Toyota didn't really have any money, they didn't have any materials, they didn't have any spare capacity. They can't do what the American manufacturers were doing, that's for sure, which is just throwing resources at the problem. Buy bigger factories, hire more people, stockpile more parts, run faster lines. No, that wasn't an option to them. They had to figure out another solution. So a production engineer, Taichi Ono, starts asking a completely different question. Instead of how do we produce more, he asks, what are we doing right now that produces nothing? So he starts walking the factory floor, not like managing necessarily, but just watching. And what he sees is waste everywhere, not broken machines or lazy workers. The machines were working fine and workers were all busy, but parts are sitting in piles, waiting to be used. People are walking across the floor to fetch things that should be right next to them. Products are being inspected at the end of the line when the defect happened much, much earlier. And ultimately, work is being done that nobody downstreams actually needed. Crazy waste everywhere. He realized something that has changed manufacturing forever. Being busy and being productive are not the same thing. Activity is not output. Motion itself is not progress. And so he categorizes every type of waste he can into these 7 categories: inventory, motion, waiting, overproduction, overprocessing, and defect. Take the first letter of each of those and you get Timwood. And then Toyota went on to build their entire production system around eliminating those 7 wastes. Not adding more, not working harder, just relentlessly removing all of the things that weren't adding value. Toyota's production efficiency improved so dramatically that by the 1970s, they were producing vehicles at roughly half the labor cost of the Americans. And by the 1980s, I think American car companies were flying executives to Japan to figure out how Toyota builds higher quality cars faster and with fewer people and less money. And the answer wasn't a secret technology, it wasn't a bigger budget, it was just a framework for seeing waste that everyone else was pretty much blind to. And I can tell you, from over a decade of shipping software products inside teams with multi-million-pound budgets, that the problems that Ono found on that factory floor in the 1950s are exactly the same problems that I find today in every service business that I work with. The tools have changed, the processes have changed, but the waste hasn't. The thing is, this was originally built for factories, for like physical assembly lines, physical products moving through like a physical space. But I'm going to show you that every single one of these, the 7 wastes, they're still alive and kicking inside your service business as well. You just can't see them because they don't really look like waste. They look like work. So let's go through them one by one. On the factory floor, transport waste is moving parts or materials from one place to another unnecessarily. A component gets manufactured in one building, trucked to another building for assembly, then moved again for packaging. Every move costs time, adds risk of damage, and produces nothing. In your service business, transport is moving information between systems for no reason. Think about how many times a piece of client data gets copied from one tool to another. A lead comes in through your website form, someone copies it into a spreadsheet, then someone else copies it into your CRM, then it gets pasted into a project management tool or something, then it gets dropped into a Slack channel so the team knows about it. It's all transport. So that same piece of information just got transported 5 times. Each move takes time, introduces errors, and produces absolutely nothing. The information didn't get better, it just got moved. Every time your team copies or pastes data between tools, that's transport waste. Next one, inventory. So on the factory floor, inventory waste is having more raw materials or work in progress than you actually need right now. Stockpiling, just in case, for example. It ties up capital and takes up space and often just goes to waste. In the service world, inventory is work that's been started but not finished. It's the 47 draft proposals sitting in Google Docs that nobody's sent. It's the onboarding template you built for when we need them but never really got used and is out of date. It's the half-built automation, the unused Notion database maybe, or the SOPs that no one actually looks at. Literally every single business I've ever worked with has a graveyard of started but not finished work. And the problem isn't just that it's wasted effort, it's that you also create clutter at the same time. Team spends time navigating around old work or figuring out what is the actual current version, wondering whether something is finished or not, and it's being used. That is inventory waste, and it's costing you more than you think. The next one is motion. And on the factory floor, motion waste is unnecessary movement by people, basically. So a worker walking across the factory floor to get a tool that they need, when really it should just be within arm's reach. In your service business, motion exists as well. It's every time someone has to hunt for something. It's switching between 6 different tabs to find a client's details, or scrolling through Slack to find that message that someone sent to them last Tuesday. It's digging through your email, for example, to find an attachment. It's, every time you say, hey, James, where was that document we needed again? That is motion. None of this is productive work. It's motion. It's your team moving through digital space, looking for things that should be immediately accessible. And the really insidious part here is it happens in tiny increments, so you don't really notice it. 30 seconds here, 2 minutes there, nobody really notices, nobody really cares, but it adds up to so much across a whole team, across a whole week, and you're looking at so many hours of wasted capacity. Honestly, if Ono had Slack, I think he would have had a breakdown. The amount of motion waste hiding inside a modern messaging tool is genuinely staggering. It's very useful, yes, but it also causes some issues as well. But let's keep going. Okay, the next one, waiting. So on the factory floor, waiting waste is when one process stands idle because the upstream process isn't finished, or the assembly team can't work because the parts haven't arrived yet. The packaging team can't work because assembly isn't done. It's all waiting. Waiting is a massive one for service businesses. It is a silent killer. It's the most damaging of all 7, I think, just because founders don't really recognize it or see it very well. It's a project that's stalled because you're waiting for a client to feedback. It's a team member that can't start their part of the work because they're waiting on someone else to finish theirs. It's the proposal that's been with the founder for review for 9 days. It's the hiring that hasn't happened, no onboarding for 2 weeks because the contract hasn't been set up, for example. All of this stuff is waiting, and it takes up so much time. Just think, every single handoff in your business is a potential for waiting. The thing about waiting is it's kind of invisible in most project management tools. It doesn't get tracked. You can see what's in progress and what's done, but you can't really see what's blocked or where things are just silently sitting, burning time, while everyone assumes someone else is handling it. If Ono were walking through your business today, this is the waste he would most definitely find. Okay, the next one is overproduction. And on the factory floor, overproduction is making more than the customer ordered. So if you're building 1,000 units, when you only have an order for 500, that is clearly overproduction. It's quite a dangerous waste in manufacturing because it triggers almost every other waste. The more you have to produce, then the more you have to store, the more transport, the more handling. It's like a multiplier effect. And in a service business, overproduction is doing more work than the client or the situation actually needs. It's the 40-page strategy document when the client needed a one-page summary. It's the team building out a full project plan for a job that hasn't been signed off yet. It's creating 5 versions of a deliverable when only one would have been fine. It's quite hard to pick, but it happens all the time. I see this all the time in agencies and consultancies in particular. The instinct is to over-deliver, to show how thorough you are, but all you're actually doing is often spending time on work that the client doesn't ask for, doesn't engage with, and doesn't even use. So overproduction feels like effort. Sometimes it feels like quality, but it's waste in disguise. And because it consumed resources without producing any value, it's something you want to try and get rid of. Next one is over-processing. On the factory floor, over-processing is using more expensive or complex processes for the job than it actually requires. So polishing a surface that nobody will ever see, or using precision machinery for all that was needed as a rough cut, for example. In a service business, over-processing is building a Ferrari when the job needs a bicycle. It's the custom-built CRM when a simple spreadsheet would have worked for the first 6 months. It's the fully automated 12-step workflow when a 2-step manual process would have done the job just fine. It's spending 3 days, perhaps, designing a beautiful internal dashboard when a shared Google Sheet would have solved the problem in 10 minutes. This one in particular hits really close to home for me because I've done it all the time. Like, I literally do this all the time. I've built elaborate systems for problems that didn't need them. And the moment I'm honest about that, I can tell you every builder, every automator, every tech adjacent kind of person has this bias where they want to build the perfect system, love the building and love the complexity. But Ono would look at it and say, mate, you're over-processing. Stop it. Match the solution to the problem, not to your ego. And the last one is defects. So on the factory floor, defects are products that don't meet the quality standards. And these are the ones that need to be reworked or scrapped. So this is kind of the opposite of what we talked about before. The cost isn't just the defect itself, the defective product. It's in the time that is spent making it in the first place, inspecting it, then fixing it, and then making it again. And it applies in your service business as well. Defects are anything that need to be done again or done twice. The proposal that goes out with the wrong client name in it, or the report with data from last month instead of this month, or the project deliverable that comes back from the client covered in revision requests because nobody clarified the brief properly. If you're getting work bouncing back, that is a defect. And just like on the factory floor, the real cost isn't necessarily the mistake itself, it's the total time consumed to address it. The original work, plus the review, plus the rework, plus the re-review, and all of the waiting in between as well. And the crazy thing that Ono actually discovered is that defects often never happen, or they're never occurring at the point at which they're discovered. So the error is always introduced upstream, and it's something that then happens as an issue further downstream. So they go unchecked often, and it doesn't surface until way too late in the process. So you have to run so many more points over and over again in order to get it back to that original point. The damage is done early in the process and doesn't show up until a long time after. If some of these wastes are resonating with you and you see them in your own business, don't forget to hit subscribe. I break down operational frameworks and how to build software that resolve these things every single week. And that's the 7 wastes: inventory, motion, waiting, overproduction, overprocessing, and defects. Tim Wood. And here's the part that Ono understood better than anyone else. These wastes don't fix themselves. In fact, they get worse over time because businesses develop a workaround for every waste instead of eliminating it. Things get worse over time. An example on the factory floor is people would introduce buffer stock because they knew that something's slow, or they just stockpile more parts because the next station, shouldn't run out. These types of things, they're, band-aids to the actual problem. It just masks it, and it makes it worse. The workaround often is you, the founder. You are the buffer stock, and you don't want to be. So when information isn't flowing between tools, you step in and manually connect the dots. When a project is stuck waiting on someone, you probably chase it. When a deliverable comes back with errors, you'll pick it up and then you'll try and address it before the client sees it. When the team can't find something, they ask you, and you have to also explain the processes when they're broken and help people go through them again and again. Painful. Unfortunately, often every waste on that list persists because you are personally compensating for it. You're not fixing the actual waste itself, you're absorbing it. And the bigger your team gets, the more waste that you have to absorb, and you don't really want to be a waste absorber, if that's a term, just invented it. Founders feel like they're scaling the team quite often, and actually that's making their life harder. And the reason for it is because these wastes aren't properly addressed. This is the trap. You are the duct tape holding together a system full of waste, and no amount of hiring, no new tool, no productivity hack is going to actually fix that, because none of those things address the root cause directly. The root cause is the waste that hasn't been made visible. It hasn't been named, and it hasn't been categorized. And if you can't see it, you can't really eliminate it. That's what Tim Wood is for. It's not a magic solution. It's only a diagnostic lens. It's the ability to look at your factory floor or your service business and see the wastes that are actually happening, so that you can identify them and then figure out what to do with them. So if that's the case, what do you actually do with this information? Well, the simplest approach is often the best. Pick one waste initially, just one. The one that hit hardest probably when you heard about it. For most service businesses, it's waiting or motion, maybe, and they tend to be the biggest silent killers. Jump into solution mode. Just watch. Spend a week, for example, checking and monitoring when that waste shows up. How many times did your team ask, where's that file? How many times does a project sit idle, for example, while someone else is waiting on the input? How many times does a deliverable come back for rework? Identify the times that these wastes are happening in your business and validate that it really is a problem. You'd be amazed at what 1 week of tracking actually reveals. And I've actually seen teams discover kind of 10, 15, 20 hours of waste in a single week just by knowing the lens that they need to look at the work from. As once you actually see it, you'll never forget it. And once you've got actual numbers on it in particular, then you can decide what to do. Maybe it's a process change, maybe it's consolidating your tools, maybe it's building a system that eliminates the waste entirely. But the diagnosis comes first, always. I know, did the walk around in the factory floor first and then figured out what to do. And that's what you need to do. Start this week. Just remember, the factory floor looked busy. Everyone was working, but Ono saw what nobody else could see, that most of the work produced nothing. The question is, can you see that too in your service business? Unfortunately, what a lot of people do when they do start to see these wastes is they think we need to automate everything. We need to automate it to make it faster. More zaps, more workflows. Just automate the stuff that's happening to reduce that waste. And the reality is that this isn't solving the root cause. So if you want to try to figure out how to solve this root cause and why there's something better than automation in resolving these types of issues, then I suggest you watch this next video. Or if you'd like to have a chat with me about how this shows up in your business and what might be the fastest route to resolving all of these wastes, then get in touch via my website, Foundana.